Hey everybody, it's Marty, the JavaScript party, and my buddy Rhett back there. We are it's a Sunday, rainy Sunday morning here in the ATL. Actually, I live in Marietta, Georgia, and it is cold and dreary and wet outside. So this is a great day to do some coding. Um, and I'm hoping this will be my last rant of the year about the expression change after it has been checked error. But if you were on yesterday, if you saw yesterday's video, you saw that basically if I killed the the application and I started it again and we looked at the console, we would see that. Now, I've tried that like 5 times this morning and I have not seen that error happen. So we'll see if 6 works. But the point is like it's just a very strange error that is very difficult to. Um, oh, we got it this time. So I tried it over and over again. Maybe it's because I have OBS running at this point, but and then like I had mentioned before, if you do change anything and then you hit save and it reloads, I don't know if it'll actually do a reload for that. Um, yeah, I don't think it saw that it recognized that it wasn't an update. So I don't know. I think it has something to do with the. Um, let's see. Now it's. See, I think my building thing, whatever does the building, is out of sync with the code. I think that happens once in a while. Um, so let's see. So that's done. So I'm gonna change this back to 0. Save. Change it to 1,000. See, we saw this yesterday where you change it to a big number, it goes away, right? And then you make that number a little smaller. And it's gone. You make that number a little smaller. And it's gone. You make that number a little smaller. And it's gone. And then 0. And if it's like yesterday, we won't have it. Oh, we did get it this time. So now it's like 1, 0. Yeah. So now that time with 0, it didn't get the error. So there's a red error that shows up there sometimes. I wonder what happens if you were to put like -1. Very curious about that. Sometimes I just like to see. So even if you give it a -1, now we'll make it back to 0. Now, one thing I consistently saw is if you don't give it a time. Oh, okay. So this time we got it with 0. So you see how sometimes we get this error with the set timeout, sometimes we don't. It's very, very inconsistent. Yesterday, um, I would only get it if I restarted the whole system, like if I closed it down and brought it up. Now let's try this. I guess this will be interesting. Let's make it like 1 second, right? So it goes away, but now let's kill it and bring it back and see if it's gone. So basically what's happening is this camera, this aspect is being printed to the screen, or it doesn't have time to ever print it to 1. So inspect. Oh, so we didn't get it because it's 1. So now let's try this. Kill this. Restart it. Go back to the console. Because it may not even have anything to do with this line of code. But basically, it gets upset when a value changes under the. One of the things I'm going to do different in the next version of this application that I start on the 1st of the year will be it's going to be very, very stable before I let it. Okay, so before anything gets drawn on the screen, it's going to be a loading screen. It's gonna be extremely, extremely stable. And then I'll finally, once everything is done that needs to be done, then it'll print. And I think these sort of errors will just go away. Um, so you see, we got it this time when I turn it to 0. Now, if I change it back to 1 second, so it's 1 second, it's gonna basically, well, let's make it like 3 seconds so we can see, or 5 seconds. 5 seconds is kind of a long time, but we'll wait for it to reload, and we'll come over to the camera and you see that, oh, there's nothing there, and now something showed up. So because it waited 5 seconds, so we never got the error. Oh, no, we never got the error. Now, if I make it 0 seconds, so we got it. So, anyways, I think in general, it wouldn't matter how many seconds you put in there. I mean, if you make it long enough, it would never be an issue. But I do think it is sort of like an indicator that maybe you're swimming upstream. Like Angular wants you to make sure that everything's settled before you start putting things on the screen. Before you put information on the screen, the data probably should be like in a good stable place. Don't just throw it out there. And I don't know that there's any value to that, but maybe there is. Maybe like I was saying yesterday, uh, maybe it is as these applications scale to larger and larger sizes, these issues start to become a bigger issue. And basically, it's kind of like, I don't know, like if you were trying to jack up a small car, and maybe there's a little bit of like small motion as you're jacking it up, because and then and you're like, okay, that's no big deal, this is just a little car. But then if you have the same exact thing on like a giant SUV that weighs like 10 times as much as the small car, that little bit of swaying is very, very dangerous. It could be fatal. Maybe this is like the kind of thing that just isn't a big deal on a small application like this, but it is a really, really big deal once you scale to a certain size. And what I'm saying is like kind of complaints that aren't really don't really matter much. Anyways, that's hopefully the last time I even talk about this. This annoys the heck out of me. That was like kind of another thing I was thinking about, is that like when like this is something that would happen in literally about 10 seconds, maybe 20 seconds of annoyance in real live coding. But like I've kind of moved my software development cycle into a super, 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 super slow mo. So I'm spending a lot of time on this. Well, I was thinking about like it's very, very treacherous to interrupt a developer while they're coding. And sometimes you can interrupt them and they'll just be like, hey, yeah, okay, no problem, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes you can interrupt them and they can be just absolutely bears to deal with. And I think it's because of this. I think while you're coding, you're experiencing a lot of emotional highs and lows, and you don't actually know what they're in the middle of is when you're sort of disturbing them. And because sometimes you just have to disturb them because you need some kind of critical information. But and they could sit there for hours just in the zone coding, and you can't wait hours. So trying to figure out when to disturb them, and most people are fairly emotionless in there. There's no way to look at them and determine if they're in the middle of a high or a low or whatever. So like they may have just made a big win, and now they were just full of joy. And when you interrupt them, they're just like gleeful. Or you could be catching them when they're like annoyed by something like this, and now they're gonna take it out on you because because it's just bad timing. But anyways, so what I would like to focus on now is what do you do with this application, right? So we have this application, it's working, and that's great, and it's neat. We can add stuff and have a lot of fun. But like, how do you use this? And I think there's a couple of fairly simple but complicated um, things to understand to be able to kind of do this. And typically, the front end developer type is not responsible for any of these tasks, so it can be quite mysterious. Um, but in a commercial place, but let's say you have your own thing. So first thing you want to do is you want to do like something called an npm run build. Now you may be wondering why, well, where that comes from, and there's a file, and it's called package.json. And a lot of times you'll have more than one package.json, so it's kind of important. Basically, it's the one that is like a peer to the source. Now, what you usually want to do, what's usually a good idea, is to go into this dist directory, like in however you do it, like go into the Explorer. Oh, I did not want to do that. Um, Open, reveal in File Explorer, um, and you want to delete everything inside of that dist folder. It could be very confusing um, if you don't delete that yourself. Let's go ahead and close that. Um, and like you see, I'm already like a million miles away from that um, error, that expression changed after it has been checked error. That like annoys me, right? Like it freaking pisses me off. But like I've already moved on, right? And it's only like been like 30 seconds. Well, it could be like just like a 3 second thing when you're actually live coding. Maybe you're annoyed for 3 seconds. If you manage to interrupt that developer right at that during that 3 seconds, you just don't know where there is like just this emotional roller coaster that developers are going through while they're coding. It's just not. I'm not saying that you should feel sorry for the developer or you should be uh, like you should never ever interrupt a developer because of this. I'm just saying that like it's in your best interest to understand that that's what you're stepping into. Um, you just don't know what you're going to get. So you should probably spend that if you have to interrupt the developer, you should probably spend the first 3 seconds just analyzing. Okay, where is this person, and then decide how you're going to go with the conversation after that. Um, you might say, hey, I've got a question, and they might just turn and just have the biggest, happiest smile that you could ever imagine, and they'd just be gleeful and just happy to spend as much time as you want because this is such a wonderful moment. Or it could just be a miserable moment for them where they're just like full of rage and all that. You just don't know what you're dealing with. But anyways, inside of here, see, I have these different commands, these scripts. And these are things that I can run. And see, there's one called test, right? So I could say ng run test. And all it's going to do is, I don't even know what it's going to do because that calls ng test, and I don't know what ng test does. I imagine ng test is going to try to run my karma test, which I have not set up. So I would imagine they will fail. So I'm actually just going to add one. And call one called help. And basically all it's going to do is say, I believe it's ng dash help is how you get help. And I'm going to kill this because this could take forever for it to just fail. Ng npm. So I don't know if that's the right command, but we're going to find out, right? So it's going to be like, it might throw an error or it might actually run ng help. Okay, so what did it? Okay, so it ran ng help, right? So ng help just gives you all the commands that currently exist in a description for every one of them, right? I just said, but let's say I said ng help now it's going to be like, I don't even know what you're talking about, dude. I got errors. It actually gives some some things, and then there is a help in general. So it's like I don't know what you're talking about, but let's say I change this to helper, and I run that ng help run helper. So that's just to say that whatever you type in here is what will just run whatever this is, and it'll run it within the context of the application. So um, that that within the context of the application may or may not make sense to you, but if you deal with this stuff for a while, it will eventually make sense to you. Um, but basically, the context of this application, one sort of way of sort of thinking of that is basically using the everything that's in this node modules. So, like if you were to look on my computer, you'd see that there's thousands and thousands, or probably at least hundreds of different node module folders all over the place, and they all have different libraries and stuff in them. And it's going to do everything with whatever's in here, not with that. So, like if I let's say I type in ng serve, right? Let's say I type in ng serve. So this, the first thing, I believe what it does, and I'm not 100% sure on this. I believe it tries to, so yeah, it's like there's no ng serve on this computer. So it tried to run it as my computer, like, and I don't have the Angular CLI installed globally, so it doesn't know what ng is. But if I say npm run ng, because I have this ng here, then it will run it in the context of this thing. So if I say ng run ng, and then I don't know, I don't think you can pass in arguments. Yeah, see, but I could say ng run, and then what stinks is that start is special. You don't have to put run in front of it. So that's why you'll see a lot of times npm start. Is that how I did that? Yeah, npm start. And you don't have to put the run in there. And I really wish they had never done that. I wish that you had to do run. But start is a special one where, and I don't even think run will work. So they made like a special thing for, oh no, okay, so run start works and same. Why they decided to make npm start work if there's a start, but nothing else is weird to me. But I'm just gonna kill that. So I need to run. Okay, so if you remember, it's been a bit. We have a dist folder, so I need to do npm run dist. I mean run build. And what that'll do is it'll call ng build, which will then put our application in this dist folder. And this can take a while. And one thing you do have to watch out for, like when I'm at work and I've written any kind of code, before I commit my code, I always do an npm run build, because sometimes the little rerunner, and I always restart the whole server, make sure it works, and then I always do an npm run build, because sometimes when you restart, certain bugs show up, and sometimes when you build, certain bugs show up. It's very rare anymore. It used to be very, very common, but it does still happen, but it's extraordinarily rare. Now you see we have an application inside of here. So just to sum up, what we did today is I did some ranting, of course, and then I did an npm, and I did some self work. I did some, you know, trying to dive into why I think things and blah blah blah. And then I did an npm run. I explained why these scripts, what these scripts work, and how it ties to npm run. And then ran npm. We deleted everything in the dist folder, and then I ran npm run build in that, and that built out this. And this is our application. You'll notice that there's no, like if you looked in this, like if we go look in here, um, reveal in File Explorer, right? And we said properties. Like this whole application is 4.85 megabytes. But if you look at just the node modules folder, let's see, view and reveal info properties. Like we are over 100 megabytes. We'll probably end up, yeah, it ended up being 304 megabytes. 200, I don't know what the difference between size on disk and size is, but it ended up being 262 megabytes of stuff. And all of these are like sort of resources that the application needs that Angular needs so that it can build this little 5 megabyte application. There was a time when you'd build an application and you would actually upload your node modules too. But Angular does a good job of going through and ripping out just what it needs out of here. And not everything in the node modules is what you need for the application. Some of it is for building, some of it is for compiling, some of it is for, you know, creating bundles and hashing things out. Like if we go into the distribution, so we have these chunks with these numbers, and these two numbers here sort of tie, are these little weird things. They tie to the like this is calculated based on all the contents of this file. So like when Angular puts together everything, and it's really more Webpack than Angular, but when you put all these things together, you say, hey, I want you to join all these different files before. Because basically one thing that used to happen is you might have thousands of these files that had download, and it would take forever for the browser to just keep requesting things. So first thing it did was it bundled them all up. It would take the 1,000 files and compress them into one file, and then it would minify them. It would make them all like pull out all the extra space and stuff. So that was like a good thing. But then what would happen is it was very difficult to get the browser to refresh to refresh the cache. So it had to break the cache, and that's what these numbers are. So what it does now is it actually does what's called a hash. So it does a calculation on all the values inside of all those files, and then this is the hash of that value, and then it names that. And so if even one tiny little thing changes in that big list, then there's going to be a different hash value. So then the browser knows, okay, this has something different in it. But anyways, that's a lot. So we're going to do that. And so that's that. In the next video, I'm going to basically run this application locally and just make sure that it runs. But it'll be outside of, it won't know any. I'll just pull these files out, and then I will run this just as a standalone application, and it's on my local. So that is going to be my goal for tomorrow, and happy coding, everybody. Bye.